So if we double right click over here in the 3D view off of any object here, or we just press Shift A to bring up our add menu, under this more option, we have several objects here which take really good advantage of Blender's grease pencil tool. So the first object we're going to go over here is this draw mesh tool. If we click to add this, we'll see as soon as we do, we see down here in the outliner that we have this new draw mesh object. And also notice that the instant we added that draw mesh object, we are transported into edit mode. As soon as you add that draw mesh object, you can then hold V to begin drawing some grease pencil strokes, and then press Shift V to convert those strokes into mesh. But to do that, you have to be in edit mode on that object. So say if I were to press Tab to go into object mode, here we have our draw mesh object selected. But if I were to hold V and start drawing some grease strokes, I could not convert those into this object's mesh. To do that, we need to be in edit mode. So let's turn that back to edit mode. Another feature of this draw mesh object is that it comes automatically with a solidify and a subsurface modifier. If we zoom in on this mesh we generated from these strokes, we can control its thickness here with this solidify modifier. And of course, we have our subsurface modifier there to make it smooth. So if we hide the visibility of that, we can see that this is what the object looks like with just the solidify. And if we hide the solidify modifier, we can see here's the actual core mesh that has been generated from our grease strokes. So let's turn the visibility of these modifiers back on. There's a couple of rules for getting our grease pencil strokes to convert into mesh like this. Whenever you're drawing the strokes, you have to draw them consecutively in the same direction. So for instance, if I were to hold V and start drawing from bottom to top like this, I would have to make each new stroke go in that same direction. So when I press Shift V, it creates the mesh like that. Or I could say do right to left up here, and that would be fine also. You just have to be consistent with the direction that you start. We can also continue on pieces of mesh here by selecting a row of either edges or vertex points, but you need to be in vertex or edge selection to do this. Kind of the same rule applies, like in the same way that when you create the mesh from the strokes, each stroke has to be drawn in the same direction. You have to select the vertex points or edges in the same direction. Say I wanted to continue these 3 rows of faces here. Say I wanted to continue them on that way. What I would do is I would select this bottom point here and then shift select these points like this. And notice that I selected them going in this direction here. So I would then do my strokes like that as well. So I would hold V from the bottom up and do like this and make those out like that. Then press Shift V, and then the mesh is continued in the way that I drew the strokes. Now this bent down and went kind of weird because the actual placement of the strokes were kind of really out in random 3D space here, which all of our strokes that we've converted into mesh here, we just kind of have drawn into random space. But really the real function of this draw mesh object is to be able to select an object you've already created, like say a character's face or a tree or anything, and then draw new mesh directly onto that object. So to show you how that works, we're going to kind of do a fun little Mr. Potato Head, only with our Suzanne monkey head. So let's press Tab to go into object mode, tap A to select everything, and then X to delete. Let's press Shift C to recenter our cursor, and let's go ahead and press Shift A, and under Mesh, let's add a monkey here, tap W, let's say 3 times, and press S to scale, G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, and just bring up this Suzanne head a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and press T to bring up my tool shelf, property shelf, and press my full screen button over here so we have a little more screen real estate to work with. Then I'm going to press 1 to go into front view and zoom in on here. Then with our Suzanne head selected, I'm going to tap Shift A, and under more here, add a draw mesh object. Now once again, the instant we add that object, we are raring to go ahead and start drawing our grease pencil strokes to make our mesh. And so what I want to do is just make a mustache on my monkey head here. So I'm going to hold V and then begin to draw the stroke, and just kind of do like a curly evil mustache thing, and then do this bottom stroke here and make that to about like that. And notice too that when I started that stroke, I did it the same direction as that top one. So when we press Shift V, we're able to create that mesh from those strokes. I could make the other side of this mustache. I could hold V and do something like this, and then draw the bottom half here and do it like this, then press Shift V and add that. Or, as we learned in the previous video, we could just add a mirror modifier, and then we only have to do the objects on the left side. So I'll press Ctrl Z to undo that, press Tab to go into object mode because we have to be in object mode, then press Shift W, and now the mustache has been mirrored. So let's press Tab to go back into edit mode, and let's go ahead and add an eyebrow up here. So I'm going to hold V and start out like this and do something like that, and then do something like this, and press Shift V, and so I've got some eyebrows here. So I'm going to rotate and then kind of zoom out a little bit, and here's our mustache and eyebrows so far. Notice too that we can see our draw mesh object through our object that we added this stuff to, and that's because by default this draw mesh object has X-ray turned on. This is to make it easier to design with initially, but if you don't want that on under display, you can always turn X-ray for any item off and on right here under display, and so it would look like that. And then if we press our full screen button here, under our Solidify modifier, we can control the thickness, of course, of our draw mesh object here. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this mirror modifier because I won't need to be adjusting its settings, and also the subsurface modifier, and that way it's just a little easier to see if I need to do some tweaking to this Solidify modifier. So we haven't really talked a lot about face normals yet in this series. But basically, whenever we say a normal of a 3D polygon face, what we're referring to is the direction. What direction is that face pointing? And sometimes when you're creating mesh from these grease pencil strokes, the direction of the faces may not necessarily be in the direction you want them to. So for instance, if I were to press B to do a border select and select this eyebrow up here, and if I were to, under my extended tools, select my cleanup button here and click flip normals, because the faces of this eyebrow are now the opposite direction, this Solidify modifier, if we go under display and turn X-ray back on, is actually causing these faces to extend the thickness in an opposite direction. So if that's ever happening and some part of your mesh isn't going the right direction you want, all you need to do is select all the mesh that's not behaving properly, and then come down here and select flip normals, and that should fix that right up. So we haven't discussed these extended tools much yet, but one thing I want to mention is if you want to hide any of these drop down menus here, you can just click on the basic tool set and then back to extended, and that will close those up. Then I'm also going to turn X-ray back off and close up my display menu here. And I'm going to press my full screen button. I'm going to press 1 to go into front view and zoom in on here. And one thing I should mention, whenever you are adding a new piece of mesh with the grease pencil strokes, if you don't want your new mesh to be connected to something else, make sure it's not selected. So for instance, if I were to start drawing my grease pencil strokes down here with these eyebrows selected, then Blender would attempt to connect the eyebrows with the new piece of mesh here, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to double click off onto the screen to deselect everything. So one thing to remember when we are working with a mirror modifier and a draw mesh object is that if we draw strokes that overlap the side in which is being mirrored, then our mesh is going to overlap and not look that great. So for instance, I wanted to add kind of a ring here on the nose. So if I were to hold V and draw a stroke like this, and then V and draw the bottom part of it like this, and press Shift V. When I do that, the mesh kind of looks all tangled up, and that's because the mirror modifier is mirroring both halves of this mesh, and it only wants to have one side to be able to mirror and look good. So what we could do to fix that is press 1 to go into front view, and then so what I'm going to do is tap Z to go into wireframe. If I try to select this half of vertex points right now, then the whole thing's going to get selected, since the whole point of the mirror modifier is to be able to edit things simultaneously. But if under display we turn off cage editing, I can then B to border select that, tap X to delete, And you see we're getting closer to the result we want. Press B and do a border select there, G to grab, and R to rotate, and kind of get this to meet. And it's not connecting there, which means we need to have clipping turned on our mirror modifier. So I'm going to click my full screen button to hop back into our main interface. And under mirror here, I'm going to turn clipping on. So I'm going to press G to grab, middle mouse to constrain. And then if we press Z to go back into solid viewport shading, we see that this is now connecting in the way we want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn cage editing back on because I like it. And then I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe, B to do a border select, so I can go ahead and select this whole piece of mesh here. And then press Z to go back into solid viewport shading, and then G to grab, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit. And then R to rotate it, and S to scale, middle mouse to constrain, just to get it to something like that. Because of course, as soon as we convert these grease strokes into mesh, they're just regular mesh now, and we can, edit them however we want, which is cool. I'm done editing this stuff, so I'm going to tap my full screen button to hop back into full screen mode. And speaking of rings, let's go ahead and add a few earrings here. So what I'm going to do is make sure I double click to deselect everything, because whenever we're adding mesh, to make a separate mesh, we need to make sure everything's deselected. So I'll come over here and I'm just going to hold V and draw some strokes like this, making sure that I'm drawing them along in the same direction. Then press Shift V, and that adds me some earrings there. It hasn't gone quite as far around as I want it to, so what I'm going to do is actually, rather than just selecting one of these points and shift selecting along like this, what I can do is Alt select down here, and then this will select this whole loop here for me. And because I selected it down there, just in the same way as if I had a shift selected each one of these points starting from there to there, I want to draw my strokes in that same consistent direction. So I'll hold V and do a few more lines there, then press Shift V. I mentioned the direction of the normals, that is basically the directions of the faces, can sometimes get switched up because when the mesh is being generated, it doesn't always entirely get what direction you want things to be faced perfectly, but no big deal. All we do is tap Z to go into wireframe so we can do an easy selection of everything, tap B to do a border select, and then so we have that all selected really quickly there. And then if we press Z to go back into solid viewport shading, we can, under our mesh cleanup here, select flip normals for this particular selection, and it is back to normal there. Okay, so I got some jazzy rings on my Suzanne head here. Let's go ahead and add some hair. To add some hair, I'm going to add a new draw mesh object because I don't want this draw mesh object full of little decal mesh to get too convoluted with the hair one I'm going to add. So I'll go ahead and add another object. But before we do that, it might be a decent idea to go ahead and give this draw mesh object a proper name so that we can reference it properly in the future. So I'm going to close up that display bit and click my full screen button. And down here where it says draw mesh, I'm just going to double click on this. Maybe call this face decals, I suppose. Hit enter. All right, let's press tab to go back into object mode, and let's click on the Suzanne head again because this is the actual thing we want to be adding our new draw mesh object for the hair to. I'm going to press my full screen button here and press 3 to go into right view, and then zoom up in on here. Press Shift A, and under more, add another draw mesh object. And then of course, as soon as we add that, we're raring to go. So I'm going to press V and kind of do a hairline coming down here and like maybe a little bit of a sideburn as well. And flush that out a little more with some strokes. And do something like this. Then press Shift V and our hair is generated here. Now you can actually control how many faces, how much mesh is used to generate the strokes. If you come down here and click on this little plus tab, which this is hiding the operator menu, which you have available to you on your tool shelf. Whenever, of course, you see a little plus tab in Blender, it means a menu is hiding, so we can click that. And we can actually control with the cross and follow. You can kind of think of this as the vertical and horizontal multipliers generating the mesh. Now the point of increasing these is it's kind of like increasing the resolution, or how accurate can the mesh fill up with those strokes. And so, you don't want to go too high because it will, end up being unmanageable, but you can increase it or decrease it some depending on what your needs are. So mine's pretty fine like that. I'll maybe increase that one just a little bit. And then I'm going to hide this menu back down. And so if we zoom out and come around here, we can see that mesh there. I'm going to go ahead and under display, turn X-ray off for it. You see that we're cutting a bit into the head there. I could manually adjust this. I could, select these faces and move them out, but I am instead going to tap my full screen button, and under the Solidify, this particular draw mesh object, I'm just going to increase the thickness out a little bit because I'm trying to make some big kind of stylized hair in any case. Maybe I will just select this edge, press G to grab and pull it up just a hair. Okay, all done here. I'm going to tap my full screen button to get back here. And let's go ahead and flesh this hair out some. So I'm going to select this edge here, then shift select this edge. And then once again, we want to follow that order in which we were selected things to draw. So I'll hold V, and I'm going to draw a stroke there, and a stroke there, and a stroke there, and a stroke here. Then I'm going to press Shift V, and that of course brings that down like that. In the same way that we are using a mirror modifier for all our stuff here, we can use one for the hair. So I'm going to press Tab to go back into object mode, tap Shift W, and this applies our mirror modifier, or adds it rather. Okay, so I'm going to press Tab to go back into edit mode. And so now I'm going to select some vertex points here and go ahead and create some strokes to bridge this off. So I'll select that, shift select these. And I could do this with edge selection, but I'm just doing it vertex selection right now. Either one's fine. Tap V, remembering to draw in the direction that we selected from. Tap Shift V, and then do the same thing up here. I'm going to select this point, shift select this, shift, 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 and then draw in this same direction like this. And remember, we've got this mirror modifier on, so I don't really want to create mesh that's crossing over this line. We just want to bring it right to where it's about to meet, and then we're going to close it up ourselves. Then I can shift select these like this. Also more lines here. Shift V. Now I'm just going to merge the rest of these together. So I'm going to select a point here, shift select a point there, tap M to bring up the merge, and then select at center, which will merge these together like that. And looks like I'm going to need to add a couple of edge loops here to bring these points together consistently. I mean, I could just merge all these together, but it would end up kind of messing up my mesh a bit. So I'm going to add an edge loop here to line up with this one, and then Shift W again to add an edge loop here. So these two line up. And I'm going to select that point, shift select that one, tap M, and then merge at center, and then select this point, and then shift select this point. And a really cool thing you can do in Blender is press Shift R to repeat your last action. And that goes for anything pretty much except for selecting. So we did that merge operation, so we could just press Shift R, and then we can do this kind of along this row here. I have to add an edge loop here. So what I'm actually going to do here is just select these two faces, shift select them, tap X to delete, and then alt select this loop here, and then alt shift select this loop here. And because these faces are the same amount, I can tap F and these will all bridge together, which works out. Okay, so finally I want to alt select this loop of edges here, which of course automatically selects on the adjacent side because this is being mirrored. And then if I press G to grab and middle mouse to constrain, I can bring these to meet each other. Only they're not merging because we need to turn clipping on. So let's click our full screen button and close all these other modifiers up, but then under mirror, turn on clipping, press G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, and then when we bring them towards each other, they all merge together. Save these two down here, which are being difficult. So let's grab one of these, press G to grab, bring that back, and then it snaps into place there. press tab to go into object mode, and I have my guy's fro hair here. I think I want to decrease the thickness of this a bit, so under my Solidify Modifier, I'm going to bring this thickness down, make sure it's not coming through anywhere, and that works out all right. Finally, for the hair, I think I'd like to add kind of like a little curly kind of thing here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and apply this mirror modifier. And now that I've done that, if I press tab to go into edit mode, this is all one single mesh, which is good. But then, of course, I don't have the liberty anymore to have whatever I change on one side affect the other side. So if I were to like grab this, it's not going to happen over there. Press Control Z. But I don't really need that anymore, so I'm going to press my full screen button, and I'm going to shift select these edges here, and then I'm going to press V to kind of do some kind of crazy thing like this, and then V and bring this down like this, then press Shift V, and I've got a nice little curve there to kind of complete his hair. If I were spending much time on this, probably what I would do from here is press tab to go into object mode, and I would head over to sculpt mode by pressing my sculpt button here. And if I tap space to bring up my brush selection, there's a bunch of different brushes I would probably use to stylize and clean up this hair, as well as, you know, some of the other aspects of this. But we're not going to really be getting into sculpting today. Just want you to be aware that, you know, that's an option to further refine your kind of draw mesh creations. So I'm going to press my object mode button to get back to here. So I've decided what I want to do is kind of make a little bust, kind of like a little sculpture thing. So what I'm going to do is make a real simple top half of this monkey's body here. And to do that, I'm just going to click on the head, press tab to go into object mode, and then underneath the neck here, I'm going to tap space to go into face selection, and then shift select some faces here. And I'm just going to press 3 to go into right view, and then press E to extrude. And then I'm going to press R to rotate this bottom of the neck here because I want it to be a bit flatter. And then press E to extrude again. And then press middle mouse to get out of that. And I'm going to Alt Shift select this loop of faces here so I can press G to grab. And then let's select these faces again like this. Press S to scale, bring it out like this a bit. And then press E to extrude that. And let's press 3 to go into right view to make sure that this is coming along the way we want. Maybe press S to scale it out a little bit, and press E to extrude, S to scale, middle mouse to constrain to get it to scale only in this direction like this, and then E to extrude again, and I will Alt Shift select this loop of faces here to scale that out just a bit bigger, maybe bring it up a bit so the bust isn't too far out. And then maybe shift scroll up for edge selection, and then shift select these two edges here, S to scale, middle mouse to constrain, bring these guys back in a bit, and then maybe these two as well. I'm not getting, real detailed with this, so I'm just going to press Shift W to do a edge loop cut. What I'm going to do is kind of make a little collar here, just a real kind of quick thing. Tap space for face selection, Alt select this loop of faces here, press E to extrude, and then I'm going to right click to extrude those without actually moving them. And then I'm going to press E to extrude again, and then press S to scale that out. And then it's kind of a little makeshift collar here. S to scale, middle mouse to constrain, maybe to make that not stick out so much. S to scale, middle mouse to constrain vertically to make it a bit taller. And there we go. For our final draw mesh object, I just kind of want to add like some pockets and maybe a tie. Let's press 1 to go into front view, zoom in on here, press tab to go back into object mode. Let's press Shift A, and under more, let's add another draw mesh object. And so I'm just going to draw like a simple pocket over here, so the top and the bottom of it, and press Shift V. In our operator menu here with the plus tab expanded, let's go ahead and increase the resolution of this just a little bit so it follows those shapes a little more closely. And then over here, let's go ahead and, making sure none of this mesh is selected, make a tie. So I'm going to hold V, draw out a line like this, do something like this, and then just make this come down like that, and then do like that. And then I'm going to hold V and draw a line down like this. And of course, I could mirror this, but I'm just going to wing it and hold V and do the next part of the tie like this, like that. Press Shift V. and we get a tie. And we can, of course, increase the resolution here so it starts looking a bit more like we want. Sometimes when you're rotating out of a orthographic view, such as the front orthographic view we were just in, will zoom you far away. If that ever happens, you can press Alt and then middle mouse button and it will zoom you in on whatever you had selected. Of course, sometimes if you don't have anything selected, there's nothing for it to zoom in on, but you can just, zoom out back real quick. Let's under display, let's go ahead and turn X-ray off for that so we can see how that's looking. Then let's press our full screen button, and under this draw mesh object, Solidify Modifier, let's increase that thickness a bit like that. Let's go ahead and rename these too. So let's call this shirt stuff, and this other one where we did the hair, we can just call this hair. Okay, click back on this one. So one really cool thing about the draw mesh objects is that you can continue to layer on top of them as much as you want. But to be able to really do that, you need to apply the Solidify modifier. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that and then press my full screen button. And let's press 1 to go back into front view. And let's go ahead and add some more stuff. So to this pocket here, press Shift A and add another draw mesh object. Then I'm going to draw right on top of this pocket because I want it to kind of like dip down like that and then draw over like that. Then I can press Shift V there, and so now it's kind of like got a part of the pocket there. And then I'm going to kind of want to draw kind of a bit of a knot over this part of the tie, so I'll press Shift V there, press Tab to go into object mode, turn off X-ray because we're done with that, and let's go ahead and increase the thickness of those just a bit. Maybe even press G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, and bring them in to actually sit inside that just a little bit. All right, close that up. Well, we are done playing Mr. Potato Monkey Head. If you followed this video along and have created your own Mr. Potato Head Suzanne thing and would like to share images of that, feel free to post those over at blendersensei.com in the forums, and feel free to comment about it and let people know what you've done. And so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next tutorial.